All right, you're welcome back. And yes, of course, food security is still on the table. I'm so glad that yesterday the lawmakers also talking about this, the need that attention is given to food security in the countries at the bottom of everything. But anyways, talking about the private sector now, the Africa Finance Corporation is interested in the private sector in Nigeria, or in Africa, well, as the name implies. So we have, I want to delve into this with the Senior Director and Treasurer of AFC, Banji Feintola is the Senior Director and Treasurer. But, well, I guess I should be the first to say this, from the 1st of August is going to be the Executive Director and Head of Financial Services with AFC. So, good morning. Well, I guess I should say congratulations ahead of August.
Well, good morning, and thank you for the congratulatory message. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, AFC is interested in the private sector growth on the continent. Forgive me if I'm selfish, and I'm talking more of Nigeria, and you're talking about emerging markets. We just talked about power, which is an infrastructural deficit or a gap, has an infrastructural gap on the continent, beginning with Nigeria. But you are also concerned about access to markets. We see some countries have started using, for instance, the AFC-FCA platform, but I don't think Nigeria has really started. What do you bring to the table as AFC to help emerging markets in this area?
Well, I mean, I think a lot. And as you definitely know, AFC has been in operation for about 16 plus years, since 2007. And during that time, we've done a lot in terms of intervention across several countries on the continent. When we started, we were about $1.1 billion. Today, we're about $12.5 billion with 43, African countries that have signed up to be members of AFC. We've deployed about $13 billion as well in about 36 countries. So that's really quite important for us, what we do in terms of scaling up developmental impact on the continent. And we've done a lot of that. We intend to do a lot more in the years to come. We primarily intervene through 5 sectors, natural resources, which is oil, gas, and mining. We do power, which I was glad to see the previous session. We spent a lot of time talking about power and energy access. We do transport and logistics. We do heavy industries, telecoms, and we also support financial institutions. So what you notice is all these sectors generally help us, to create decent markets for Africa. You talked about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. We're very big in supporting that. We cannot connect Africa in terms of intra-African trade without supporting infrastructure, which is the backbone upon which trade will sit. So across all those, we see tremendous opportunities, and we are actively, working across the continent, including Nigeria. Obviously, I notice your selfish interest about Nigeria, but we're actively working here as well to ensure that markets are more efficient and we can deliver the kind of development that will trickle down to the African population.
But how do you suggest this issue of devaluation of currencies, Naira included, be handled? Because that obviously makes a lot of things difficult. I mean, thank God you listened to the conversation on power. They have to pay for gas in hard currency, and of course with the devaluation of the Naira, it becomes more expensive. So, I mean, devaluation of the currency is a huge problem for many countries on the continent at this time.
I fully agree with you. And, honestly, that's been a problem that's been with us for decades, right? So if we go back to our parents' time, I'm sure they will be screaming to see where the currency is today compared to what it was during their time and even during our own lifetime growing up in this country. And it's just a reflection of the structure of our economies. Whenever there's a massive devaluation, that has impact on inflation. It has an impact on the cost of living of people. And that's largely because most of the things in this country and on the continent tend to be imported. So you tend to have more of imported inflation, largely because currency is losing value from time to time. Now, that's extremely it's a big challenge that we need to address. And I think for me, there are two things. One, let's focus on the first thing we can control. One thing we can control, obviously, is our taste, and preferences for imported things, as long as it's not capital goods. I'm just talking about consumables. That is within the control of people. But people will not buy local products except the quality is probably as good as what they get, from the imported ones. So we know that we need to fix the value chain. The whole process, the system today where Africa has abundant natural resources, we ship out those natural resources, we don't do any beneficiation or processing on the continent, and then we import finished or semi-finished goods. That has to stop. And that's really where AFC has been very active in trying to ensure that there's more value capture on the continent. So we've been highly successful with this in Gabon, which I'm sure you might have heard about, where we've developed special economic zones. And the whole idea is that a lot of production needs to start happening on the continent. Our special economic zone today is in 10 countries. Obviously, Nigeria is also one of the countries in which they are also starting activities. In Benin, cotton, through our special economic zone, is now being processed into, fabrics, into T-shirts, into towels, and those things are being exported to the rest of the world, bringing foreign currency into the country and the continent as well. So that's really the direction of travel. For us to address this problem of devaluation, Africa needs to move up the value chain. And moving up that value chain, therefore, means that we can export and add value on the continent and get hard currency which supports our local currencies.
Yeah, well, I really wish we could delve more on that, especially when you look at workable, innovative business models. I wonder if you can do that in less than a minute. We're almost out of time that you can suggest. This time for just Nigeria, let me let my selfishness show. We saw a lot of multinationals leaving the country. It's worrying, but of course we can also make the most of it. What are some of those, or what is one major model you think Nigerians can adopt?
So Nigeria specifically is blessed, and just Nigeria mirrors the rest of the continent. Over 60% of this continent is people below age of 25. So we have a youthful population. We need to find a way to ensure that that population is engaged. We need to find a way to get jobs for those people, and that links to my earlier comment around providing opportunities and moving up the value chain. The government itself needs to create, obviously, a very friendly environment for businesses to thrive. I think the role of government in any society really is to remove the bottlenecks and let the private sector to just fly, and capital institutions like ours needs to find a way to connect global capital also to Nigeria and to the rest of the continent. And you have our commitment that we'll be doing that significantly at AFC going forward.
All right, so thank you. We'll hold you to your word, and we hope those capital will not cost us an arm and a leg. Mr. Banji Feitola, Senior Director and Treasurer at AFC, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, well, unfortunately, we don't have time to do the markets, but do join Ladi Williams and Anete Edet at 1 p.m. Business Incorporated. They'll give you all the market fresh numbers, so you don't want to miss it. And also, remember that NNPCL conversation is also waiting for you. Then let's head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio.